Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Repeat Rod, and today we're going to be doing a really big Deep Rock Galactic tier list. This is going to be for all the Overclocks. I'm going to be ranking them based on how good I think they are. We've done one of these before, including all the Overclocks, which is how fun they are, and I would suggest that you check out that, because I think having more fun Overclocks is more important than necessarily having the best Overclocks. For anybody who doesn't know how this is going to work, it's going to go from S tier being really overpowered, extremely good, pretty much always going to be a top pick, to D tier being something that actually hinders you. A tier is still going to be really good, so it can fit with a lot of things. I think a lot of clean Overclocks are going to fit into the A and B tier. B tier is still good, still a bonus, and C tier is just kind of average, or it changes the weapon to something different that may not necessarily be better or worse than it. First up, we have lightweight rounds. This is for the submachine gun stubby that the engineer has. This just makes it so you get more ammunition, you lose out on rate of fire, and you lose out on damage. This one's a pretty good one for stubby, in all honesty. It's, for the most part, a bonus. It really helps if you want to take a highly specialized overclock with your secondary weapon, whether that be the breach cutter or the grenade launcher. So I'd probably put this one into A tier. It's pretty good. There's not really a downside to it. It's definitely not S tier. It's not one of the best overclocks in the game, but it's decent all the way around. Our other stubby overclock is, at least that's balanced, is the EM Refire Booster. This increases your electric damage, increases your rate of fire, but increases your spread. This one is also just a nice bonus. This one's probably the best one for stubby, and I'd put it up into A tier. It's still nothing crazy. It doesn't push stubby into being a super effective weapon in all situations, but it does give stubby a good advantage at close to medium range, where you can just spray down enemies. You know what, let's just cover all of stubby's stuff first, and then we'll just move on from weapon to weapon. So our next one is super slim rounds. This just increases your magazine size by 5 and reduces your base spread with stubby. Always going to be a good thing, always a nice bonus to it, and I'd probably put this one into B tier. Solid all around overclock for stubby, nothing really to say wrong about it or anything like that. Our other clean overclock for stubby is the well-oiled machine. This gives us higher rate of fire and faster reload speeds. Again, another good overclock and probably belongs in B tier. For our unstable overclocks for stubby, we have the turret arc. Turret arc makes it so that you can shoot one of your turrets and it will arc lightning all around it, as well as arc lightning to another turret. Definitely run 2 turrets if you're running this, but you lose out on rate of fire and maximum ammo. That can be kind of annoying. This one doesn't always work on all the maps. It can actually get you a lot of value if you set it up right, but reduction of ammo is kind of annoying, and I'd probably put this one into B tier. It's okay. We got turret discharge, or turret EM discharge. This makes it so when you shoot your turret, it sends off a discharge that hits all enemies around them, slowing them and dealing lightning damage to them. You lose out on magazine size and you lose out on damage with this one. Again, another overclock that can be really good. I don't find myself using it very much on higher hazard difficulties, just because sometimes it's difficult to hit the turret if there's so many bugs around it. Sometimes environments just aren't great to use it, and I don't use it all that often, but it's still probably a B tier perk, I'd say. Next we'll do the Warthogs overclocks. First up we got Stunner. Stunner just makes it so we have a higher chance of stunning enemies, and we deal bonus damage to stunned enemies. It's nothing but a bonus, so I'd probably put this one up into B tier too. It's also pretty good. We have lightweight magazines. This gives us extra ammo and a faster reload time. The shotgun really benefits from extra ammo, and the faster reload time is always a good thing. I'd put this one up into A tier. Next we have magnetic pelt alignment. This makes it so you reduce your overall spread by 50%. As well as you get 30% more weak spot damage, but you lose out on rate of fire. The rate of fire isn't that big a deal. If you take the level 5 or the tier 5 perk to where your gun is then full auto, then you really don't lose out on anything. Then it's just a bonus, and this is probably my favorite overclock for the shotgun, and I would put it up into A tier. It still doesn't turn the shotgun into anything super amazing, but it is just a nice overclock to have. For our unstable ones, we have Cycle Overload. This increases our damage, increases our rate of fire, but decreases our reload speed, as well as increases our spread. This one could be fun to use at close range, but honestly I find it a little bit underwhelming a lot of the time, so I'd probably put this one into B tier. It can still be useful, but not super useful. Next we have mini shells. This increases our maximum ammo by a lot, our magazine size, and our recoil is reduced by quite a bit, but then we lose out on damage, and we lose out on the ability to stun enemies pretty much at all. This one can be really good too. You can build it to hit certain breakpoints, and it's pretty strong on the shotgun if you use it correctly. I'd put this one on the low end of A tier. It's still really nice. Alright, we're moving on to the grenade launcher next, and our first one is Clean Sweep. This gives us more area damage and a larger area effect radius. Really good. The grenade launcher always benefits from this. Another A tier overclock. Then we have Pack Rat. Pack Rat just gives us 2 more ammo. Really nice for the grenade launcher, but not at all necessary. This one I think I'd actually put into C tier. It's not bad by any means or anything like that. It's just, it's less good than other overclocks, so I think there is okay to put it. Then we have compact rounds. This gives us 5 more ammunition, but we lose out on area damage and area effect radius. This one's actually pretty good. You get a lot more ammo with it, and I'd put it up into B tier. I think it is better than the Pack Rat. Then we have the RJ 250 compound with a grenade launcher. This gives us way more ammo, faster reloads, and we can launch ourselves across the map, but we lose out on damage. It can give you a lot of mobility, which is great for engineers since you don't have much. So I'd probably put this one into A tier, probably on the lower end though, because it isn't as useful as some overclocks, but it's still really fun to play around with, and it still gives you value outside of just dealing more damage or having a little bit more rate of fire or something. Then we have our unstable overclocks. We got Fat Boy first. This makes it so you pretty much fire a nuke whenever you shoot the grenade launcher. You get way more damage, a much larger explosion radius, but way less ammo and way less projectile speed. This one is really strong. You can clear entire hordes with this. It's really good against killing pretty much everything in the game, including yourself and your friends, so you have to be careful of that. Running the skill friendly does help with this, but this is probably our first S tier overclock because it is just so crazy good with the grenade launcher. Next we have hyper propellant. This turns your grenade launcher into a railgun more or less, where we get way more direct damage, much faster projectile speed, but we lose out on our explosion radius by a lot, as well as we lose out on overall ammo. This is really, really strong and one of my favorite overclocks. You can snipe pretty much anything out of the air, off the ceiling, across the map, and either take a huge chunk of its health away or completely kill it with just one shot. It is really strong. I would put this one also up into S tier with the Fat Boy. Then we've got our Breach Cutter overclocks. We've got the lightweight cases. This increases our maximum ammo and decreases our reload speed. Great, and this is the one that I run the most on the Breach Cutter. I think it goes up into A tier. Then we have Stronger Plasma Current. This just gives us extra damage as well as a slightly longer lived projectile, which is nice. Again, another probably A tier overclock. Very good. Our last clean overclock is roll control. This makes it so you can control the roll of the Breach Cutter's actual shot, and this one is super fun. I really enjoy it, and I think you can get a lot of value out of it. I would probably also put this one into A tier once you get used to it. Before that, I'd probably put it into like B tier. It's always kind of fun to play with, but a little bit difficult to kind of figure out. For our balanced overclocks, we have our high voltage crossover. This just gives us more electricity damage on our weapon, but we lose out on magazine size. Magazine size doesn't matter that much with the Breach Cutter, and this one is really good. Probably another A tier overclock. And then we have return to sender. This one, you lose out on maximum ammo, but you get the ability to return to sender. So when you fire out the laser, you can pull it back towards you. So it can sit inside of an enemy. This can be really good for any of the large enemies. You can deal tons of damage to them if you can get it to stay inside of them for a long period of time, as well as you can hit some enemies behind you. I would again put this one into A tier. It's really good once you get used to it. Before you get used to it, it feels really wonky, but once you do get used to it, it's pretty nice. Next we have Spinning Death. This makes it so when you fire out the plasma shot from the Breach Cutter, it starts spinning around pretty much like a blender. So your beam spins, you have a wider beam, you have a longer lasting beam, but you lose out on damage and you lose out on ammo as well as magazine size. You lose out on a lot, but you can make it so this builds up a lot of damage if you put it in the right areas. Again, it's another like A tier-ish perk if you are good at using it. Otherwise, I'd probably put it into like B tier, because sometimes you might not get the most value out of it. And then finally we have Inferno. This reduces your damage as well as reduces your armor breaking ability, but you do light things on fire, pretty much guaranteed. I found that this one's pretty decent too. Maybe not as strong as some of the other overclocks for the Breach Cutter, but I'd probably put this one into B tier too. It's kind of nice. Next up, we're going to do Drillers overclocks, and we're going to start out with the Flamethrower. Our first overclock here is for lighter tanks. This just gives us 75 more fuel than we normally would have. A good overclock and probably belongs into B tier. It's a nice thing for the Flamethrower. Then we have Sticky Additive. This increases your damage slightly and increases your sticky flame duration slightly. This one's kind of an okay overclock. I think I'd put this one into C tier because it doesn't give you as much value as some of the other overclocks for Flamethrower. It's still good. Next we have Compact Fuel Valves. This increases our tank size, increases our maximum fuel, but decreases our flame reach and increases our reload time. This is another pretty good one for the Flamethrower and probably belongs in B tier as well. Then we've got the Fuel Stream Diffuser. This makes it so we have longer flame reach, but our burn through rate of our flame fuel is slower. So we have less damage per second, but we have longer reach. This one is another pretty good overclock. It's probably the weakest overclock the Flamethrower has, but it's not even really that weak. It's just kind of different than the other ones. I think I'd put this one in the high end of C tier. It's still good. It's just a little bit different. I wouldn't say that it's a bad choice for any of the flamethrower builds, though. And then we have Face Melter. Face Melter increases our damage. It increases our damage per second, but we have quite a bit shorter reach with the flamethrower, and we also have less tank size. This one's really good for the flamethrower, and I'd probably put it up into A tier because it is so strong. Then we have Sticky Fuel. This makes it so our sticky flame duration is much longer. We have more sticky flame damage, but we lose out on overall ammo as well as we lose out on tank size. This one can be good if you're kind of sparing with your fuel, and I really enjoy it, but I'd probably put it... It's either like A or B tier for me. I think I'd put it into B tier. Nah, I'd put it into A tier. It's somewhere like around there for me. Then we have our Cryo Cannon. So first up, we have improved thermal efficiency. This gives us a larger tank size, as well as we get increase to our pressure drop. Well, we get a decrease to our pressure drop rate. So our gun does not overheat as quick or lose pressure as quick, and we get more ammunition. This one's a great one. I'd probably put it up into B tier. It's nice to have on the Cryo Cannon. Then we have the Perfectly Tuned Cooler, or just Tuned Cooler as it's called now. This increases our freezing power and increases our flow rate, but we lose out on charge up time and we lose out on pressure gain. This one's really good if you want to freeze enemies, and I think it's one of the best ones for the Cryo Cannon. I'd probably put this one into A tier. Then we have Flow Rate Expansion. This increases our pressure gain and increases our flow rate, but we lose out on the pressure drop rate. So this kind of changes the Cryo Cannon, and it feels kind of strange when you use it. I don't really think that this one's necessarily a bonus or a loss. It just changes the gun to be a bit different. So I'd put this one into C tier. Then we have Ice Spear. Ice Spear makes it so we get an Ice Spear, so when you hit your reload button, you can fire out an Ice Spear. This costs, I think it's 75 fuel to use. It does really high damage as well as it does AoE damage, but it's only really useful against big enemies, and beyond that, it's still not necessarily a bad thing. I think I'd put it into B tier. It's still okay to have. Ice Storm increases our damage by double with the Cryo Cannon, and then doubles it again if an enemy is frozen. However, we can't freeze things as fast. We lose out on tank capacity, and our pressure drop rate is increased. This is really bad. I do not like Ice Storm at all. It's probably one of my least favorite overclocks because it just gets rid of what the Cryo Cannon is good at, and I would put this one into D tier. Then we have Snowball. Snowball is similar to Ice Spear, where we can shoot out a snowball. This one does come at the cost of 100 tank fuel, though, so we do lose out on that. The Snowball acts very similar to a cryo grenade, so you can freeze large groups of enemies, and this is really good against Magterra. Outside of that, it has pretty niche use, so I'd probably put this one into C tier. Next, we have the Sabata Pistol, and first up, we have Chain Hit. This makes it so we have a chance of whenever we hit a weak spot of an enemy, for our bullet to then ricochet into another enemy within, I think it's like 6 meters. 75% chance. This is a nice bonus to the Sabata, but nothing crazy. Into B tier. Then we have Homebrew Powder. This randomizes the damage of the Sabata between 80% and 140%. We'll likely get more damage out of it than we normally would, but the Sabata doesn't necessarily need this. If you want to go all damage, you can kind of make use of it, but I would put this one into C tier. It's okay. Then we have Oversized Magazine. This just gives us 10 more magazine size, but then we get a slightly slower reload. That's not a big deal. This is probably one of the best ones for the pistol, but I'd still probably put it into B tier because it's nothing spectacular. It's just kind of nice to have. Then we have our Automatic Fire. This makes our submachine gun full auto. We get more rate of fire, but we get more spread and more recoil. That's not really a bad thing. This is probably another B tier one. It's just kind of nice to change the pistol into a full auto gun. I would recommend taking the larger magazine. I think it's on like tier 2. Maybe it's tier 1. That way, at least you have some bullets to be spraying when it's in full auto. Then we've got Explosive Reload. This makes it so we get less ammo, less magazine size, but our bullets will do more damage once we reload our gun, and it will cause an explosion inside the enemy. This can be pretty fun. I like using it, but it's, again, nothing that the Sabata entirely needs. It's just kind of a nice bonus. At least kind of nice trade-off, so probably B tier again. And then we have the Tranquilizer Rounds. This increases our stun chance by 50%, as well as our stuns last much longer than they normally would, but we lose out on rate of fire and we lose out on magazine size. Again, another B tier overclock. It's fine. It's nice to have on the pistol sometimes. Next, we got the EPC overclocks. So first up, we got energy rerouting. This gives us a larger battery as well as faster charge speed. Really nice. Nothing to complain about there. Probably up into A tier. Then we've got magnetic cooling. This increases our cooling rate and makes it so that we have less heat buildup. Kind of nice to have. It's less punishing and can kind of be used as a crutch sometimes for the pistol. But overall, it's nothing but a bonus, so I'd put it into B tier. Then we've got Heat Pipe. Heat Pipe used to be better, but now it's not as useful. This makes it so you use less ammo when you're using your charge shots. You also increase the charge speed, so you get your charge speed up quicker. But then it comes at the cost of generating more heat per shot and generating even more heat when it's fully charged up. So this one can be kind of useful if you want to be sort of mining with it. That's the reason why I used it before, but it's not nearly as strong as it used to be. And I rarely run this thing. I'd probably put it into like C tier. It's okay. Then we've got Heavy Hitter. This increases our shot damage, but we lose out on battery capacity, as well as our normal shots increase the heat generated. The increased damage for this one is kind of nice when you just want to spam fire the EPC at enemies, but even then it's still just kind of okay. I'd probably put this one into B tier. And then we've got Overcharger. This makes it so we do more charge damage, more charge area, and have a larger charged area shot radius. But it takes more ammo per shot for our charging, and we have a slightly slower cooldown rate. This one's actually pretty nice to have. It's really good for clearing out hordes, and I'd probably put it up into A tier. Our other unstable overclock is the Persistent Plasma. This makes it so we lose out on charge damage and charge area, but our charge shots will cause Persistent Plasma to deal damage in an area, as well as deal damage over time and slow enemies. That is really strong, and this is probably my favorite overclock for the EPC. I think I'd put it at the very high end of A tier. I don't think it's quite S tier. Up next, we've got the minigun overclocks, and our first one is a little more oomph. This gives us a little bit more damage and a faster spin-up time. Really nice to have with the minigun, and I'd probably put it into B tier. Then we have Thin Drum Walls. This increases your maximum ammo by quite a bit, as well as you get a faster cooling rate. Again, kind of a nice one and probably belongs into B tier. It's an all-around solid overclock for the minigun. In our balanced overclocks, we have Burning Hell first, and Burning Hell makes it so that we do generate heat faster on our minigun, but we burn everything that is close to us, lighting it on fire, very similar to the flamethrower. It's actually really nice to have the Burning Hell overclock. I'd probably put this one up into A tier. Then we've got Exhaust Vectoring. Exhaust Vectoring increases our damage, but increases our base spread. So Exhaust Vectoring is really strong, especially if you take the level 1 talent to where it's just you have a smaller base spread. That really cancels this out. And then Exhaust Vectoring is very strong. I'd put this one up into A tier. And then our last balanced overclock is Compact Feed Mechanism. This gives us 800 more ammo, but we lose out on rate of fire. Losing out on rate of fire is not a huge deal with the minigun, and having extra ammo is pretty nice. I would put this one up into B tier as well. For our unstable overclocks, we have Bullet Hell. This increases our ricochet chance by 75%, but we lose out on damage, and we have 6 times the base spread. This one can be good if you're using it in a specific way. If you're just using it like you would the normal minigun, it's pretty underwhelming, and I'd probably put it into C or D tier. But if you're using it in an inventive way, like just digging part of a hole into a building or into a cave and then firing in there and then it's just kind of scouting out ahead for you, or in certain mission types where you could build a bunker and just spray the minigun outside and you'll kill lots of stuff, it can be really strong then. So I'm going to make a compromise and put this one into B tier because it could be A tier, I would think. Under the right conditions, but it could also be like C or D tier depending on how you're using it, and it's a bit more restrictive than the other overclocks for the minigun. Then we've got Leadstorm. Leadstorm increases our damage by quite a bit for the minigun, but we lose out on stun chance, stun duration, and we cannot move while the minigun is spun up and shooting. You can still use things like the zip lines to move around though. Leadstorm's pretty solid all the way around too. I'd probably put it into A tier. It can be really nice, especially on like escort missions where you just have the Doretta just taking you wherever you need to go, and then you can just spray as much as you would like. Next is the Auto Cannon. First up, we have Composite Drums. This gives you more ammo and a faster reload. Nice. It's going into B tier like so many of these perks that do this. Then we have Splintering Shell. This increases your area damage and area radius. Really nice for the Auto Cannon, probably up into A tier. Then we've got Carpet Bomber. This increases our area damage as well as our area effect radius by quite a bit, but we lose out on base damage. So we do more damage towards crowds, and this one is really strong. I don't know if I'm going to put this one into S tier. It's really good. I think I will. I'll put the Carpet Bomber up into S tier because it is really strong. Then we have Combat Mobility. This increases our movement speed when we're using the gun. Decreases our spread, so we are more accurate. We also have a faster rate of fire scaling, and we have a faster starting rate of fire, but we lose out on half of our magazine. That's not a huge deal, I would say, for all the bonuses that you get, and I'd probably put this one into A tier. It's actually quite nice to be running around really quick with the Auto Cannon. Next we have Big Bertha. This increases your base damage as well as decreases your base spread, so you're more accurate, but you lose out on magazine size, total ammo, and top rate of fire. This one I'd probably put into A tier because it can be really good for killing big stuff, but it can be a little bit underwhelming when it comes to crowds compared to something like the Carpet Bomber or the next one we're going to talk about, Neurotoxin Payload. Neurotoxin Payload increases the chance of triggering Neurotoxin Payload, which also increases your overall effective radius, and this spreads poison to enemies, dealing damage over time and slowing them down. This comes at the cost of doing less damage and less area damage. This one is still really strong, and it's probably one of my favorite overclocks. I'd put this one up into A tier. Now we've got the Revolver, and first up we got Chain Hit. This is the same as the Sabata. It just makes it so you have a chance of ricocheting bullets into other enemies, so it's pretty nice, and I'd also probably put this one into B tier. Then we have Homebrew Powder. This one is actually a balanced overclock, not a clean overclock. This randomizes your damage between 75% and 200%. That's actually really nice to have with the Revolver, and you can hit incredibly hard with this, but it's a little bit inconsistent, so I'd put it into B tier. Then we have Volatile Bullets. This makes it so we lose out on 10 damage, but we get 300% more damage towards burning enemies. If you're using this in combination with the Burning Hell overclock, it's incredibly powerful, or if you just have multiple drillers on the team with flamethrowers, it's also incredibly powerful. Probably put this one into A tier. Then we have 6-shooter. 6-shooter gives us a larger magazine size, more ammo, and a faster rate of fire, but we lose out on having a slightly slower reload speed and having more base spread. The Revolver is already really accurate, so that's not a huge deal, and the reload isn't a big deal either. This one's usually just a straight bonus. I'd put this one into A tier. Then we get to our unstable overclocks, where we have Elephant Rounds. This doubles our damage, halves our spread, but we lose out on 12 max ammo, 1 magazine size, a reload penalty, a recoil penalty, and a spread per shot penalty. So this turns your Revolver into a sniper rifle that's incredibly powerful and pairs really well with their other secondaries. I'd put Elephant Rounds up into S tier as well. It's really strong. Then we have Magic Bullets. Magic Bullets makes it so all of your bullets will ricochet into enemies so long as you hit close to them. You lose out on damage, but you get more maximum ammo. This is really strong too. This is probably one of my favorite overclocks. I'd put this one high up into S tier as well. And then our last gunner weapon is the Burstfire Pistol. First up, we have Full Chamber Seal. This increases our damage and decreases our reload. Again, another B tier perk because it's just nice to have. Then we have Composite Casings. This increases your maximum ammo and increases your rate of fire. Again, really nice to have, another B tier. Then we go on to Compact Mags. This increases your overall maximum ammo by quite a bit, but we lose out on rate of fire and we lose out on reload speed. This one's nice too. You just get a lot of bullets with the gun, and it's probably another B tier perk. Then we have Experimental Rounds. This increases our damage by quite a bit, but we lose out on magazine size and maximum ammo. That's not such a bad deal for this though, and this one's another probably B tier overclock. It's just kind of nice to have on most of the burst pistol builds. Next we have the Electro Mindlets. This one is interesting. You can deal pretty decent damage with this, but it's kind of unreliable, and you lose out on damage and you lose out on magazine size. I'd probably put this one into like C tier. It's still really good a lot of the time. It's kind of weird to use, so that's why I'm putting it there. Then we have Micro Flechettes. This gives us way more ammo, a much larger magazine, half the recoil and half the spread, but we lose out on a lot of damage per shot. This one's good if you want to use it in a status affecting build with the burst pistol, and it's probably, again, another B tier overclock. It's good, but you just have to run the gun in a certain way. And then we have Lead Spray. This increases our damage by a lot, but it increases our base spread by a lot. You can do tons of DPS with this, and this is probably my favorite one to use. I'd put this one up into A tier. Alright, then we're moving on to the Assault Rifle with the Scout. Our first one is Compact Ammo. This gives you a larger magazine size and reduced recoil. You know where that means. It's going to go into B tier. It's good. Then we have Gas Rerouting. This increases your rate of fire and decreases your reload time. Nice. Another B tier. Then we have Homebrew Powder. This randomizes your damage between 80% and 140%. For the Assault Rifle, I really don't like this one. You can build it all damage and make that up, then just hope to be rolling high damage against big things, but that's kind of an annoying way to build the Assault Rifle, so I'd put this one into C tier. Then we have the Overclocked Firing Mechanism. This increases your rate of fire by a lot, but doubles your recoil with the Assault Rifle. This one's pretty good. I enjoy it. I'd probably put this one into A tier. Then we have Bullets of Mercy. This makes it so you do 33% more damage towards any targets that are affected by statuses, whether it be fire, stun, electricity, frozen, acid, whatever it might be. You do more damage, but you lose out on magazine size. That's not a big deal, and this is probably one of the best overclocks for the Assault Rifle. I would probably put this one high up into A tier. I'm not sure if I'd put it into S tier. It is usually just a bonus, and it's probably one that you would pick pretty often, but I don't think it's quite as strong as the ridiculous ones we have in S tier right now. Then we have the AI Stability Engine. This makes it so we have no recoil, we have pretty much no spread per shot, and we get 40% increased damage towards weak spots, but we lose out on rate of fire and damage. This one is just really strong. I really like it for the assault rifle too, and I'd also put it up into A tier. Then we have the Electrifying Reload. This makes it so every time we reload our gun, we electrify whatever enemies we've been shooting. This one's another awkward one for me with the assault rifle. I don't really care for it all that much. We lose out on damage, we lose out on magazine size, and I'd probably put this one into C tier. Next, we have the M1000 rifle, and we've got Hoverclock. Hoverclock's really fun to use. It makes it so if you're in midair when you are using the focus shot, you slow down. Pretty much like you're hovering. It's kind of nice to have, and it's super fun to use. I'd put it up into A tier. Then we have Minimal Eclipse. Minimal Eclipse gives us a much larger magazine size as well as faster reloads, and it's another really nice overclock to have for the M1000, so A tier. Then we have Active Stability System. This increases our focus shot move speed as well as increases our focus speed, but makes it so we reload slower. Kind of a nice one to have. I'm going to put this one into B tier though, because I don't use it a whole ton. Then we've got Hipster. Hipster gives us way more ammunition, a much higher rate of fire, and very little recoil for losing out on some of our damage. Hipster is really strong right now with the M1000, and I'd probably put this up into S tier. It's kind of crazy how good it is. Then we have the Electrocuting Focus Shots. This makes it so our focus shots do electrocute enemies, but we lose out on focus shot damage. I don't really care for this one. It makes it more of a support weapon, and I don't think that's what the M1000 is really great at. So I'd put this one into C tier. It still gives you some value. Then we have the Super Cooling Chamber. This gives us 125% more focus damage, but we can't move when we're using it. We have much slower focus speed. We have much less ammo. It makes the gun way more punishing. I think I'm going to put this one into B tier, even though I could see it being into A tier if you're really good at shooting. Then we've got the Double Barrel up next, which has compact shells. This gives you more ammo and a faster reload. Again, another B tier perk. Nice to have. Then we have Double Barrel. This makes it so we get slightly more damage, but we have to fire out both barrels every time with the double barrel. This one is not very good. This is probably another one that I really dislike because there's no real reason to have it at any point. You can just go with a different overclock that's going to give you way more value than double barrel really ever will. So D tier. Then we've got Special Powder. Special Powder makes it so you can do a shotgun jump, and that is really awesome. It's super fun to use. You get around places really easy with it. I'd probably put this one into A tier. It's S tier in terms of fun, but A tier in terms of useful because you don't necessarily need it. And then we have Stuff Shells. This gives us one more damage, one more pellet. That's really good with the shotgun, and another B tier. Then we have Shape Shells. This makes it so we get 50% reduced spread, which helps out a lot hitting any long range shots with the double barrel. But we lose out on one pellet. One pellet isn't that big of a deal, and being able to fire your shotgun at range is pretty nice. I'd probably put this one into B tier as well. Then we've got Jumbo Shells. This gives us quite a bit more damage with each of our shotgun shots. We have less ammo overall and have slightly longer reload. I'd put this one up into A tier. It's really nice to have. And then finally, we have the Zukov overclocks, where we have minimal magazines. This makes it so we have faster rates of fire and a faster reload. Really nice. Another B tier. Then we have Custom Casings. This gives us more ammunition, but we lose out on rate of fire. That's not so bad with the Zukovs. They shoot fast enough, so I'd probably put this one up into A tier. I use it fairly often. Then we have Cryo Mindlets. This makes it so we can shoot Cryo Mindlets, and we can freeze enemies, but we lose out on damage and we lose out on clip size. This one can be really good. It's really the only reason to take blow-through rounds with the submachine guns. There's really not any other overclocks that really help with that, but this one is quite nice. I'd put this one up into A tier as well. Then we have Embedded Detonators. Embedded Detonators makes it so we lose out on combined clip magazine by quite a bit. We lose out on ammo by a lot, and we lose out on damage. But we get way more damage from our reloads, and we can kill enemies incredibly fast, especially if you combine this with the IFG grenade that Scout gets. You kill things incredibly quick with it. I would probably put this one up into A tier. It can be S tier on certain missions like Dreadnought eliminations, then it probably is. And then our last overclock is Gas Rerouting. This gives us way more damage, but we lose out on any sort of weak point damage, as well as we get more spread, and we cannot move as fast with our submachine guns. This one's still really nice, and I'd probably also put it up into A tier. It's really good overall. You just get a whole lot of value out of it. So I think this is where, and for whatever reason, we have another magnetic cooling, so I guess I'll throw that into D tier to make this list complete. This is all of the overclocks in Deep Rock Galactic. I have them ranked now, in my opinion, as to what's the best, what's the worst, and everything in the middle. There's a lot of A and B tier overclocks, though, in my opinion, so use whatever you'd like. There's really not a whole lot of bad choices when it comes to overclocks, and hopefully you found this video kind of entertaining. If you did and you'd like to see more, be sure that you get subscribed. That way you get notifications whenever I post these videos. Special thanks to all the supporters of the channel. These are my members over here on YouTube, as well as my Patreons over on Patreon, who get early access to videos like this. If you'd like to be a part of that, be sure to check out the links in the description. Those all really help out the channel a lot. Thank you everybody who does that. If you guys would like to see more of my Deep Rock Galactic content, be sure to click over here on this video. That'll take you to a full playlist of everything that I have, and I will see you guys next time. Till then, stay cool, and bye!